Hey everyone, I'm Allison.
And I'm Bryce, and we're Better Half Reviews.
And today we're looking at the Kickstarter game, Elements of the Gods. It's designed by Jay Vals, and it's published by Sideroom Games. And I can't say the artist's name because I don't want to butcher it, so here is their name. The art is beautiful.
In Elements of the Gods, you are a young god who's using elements to manipulate your worshippers into building you monuments, beautifying those monuments with gardens, and performing sacrifices to get you victory points to win the game.
Alright, so let's check it out. So just a quick note, this is a prototype copy, so all of these components are not final. This board is two-sided, so depending on your player count, the map will be slightly different in size. Alright, so this is the setup of the board for a two-player game. You start the game with 4 gardens in the corners. In the two-player game, you're playing without the outer layer. And you randomly draw out your different meeples from the bag and set them out 2 by 2, and you're ready to start the game. Everybody gets these cards at the very beginning of the game. You get 2 monument cards, 2 garden cards, and 1 divinity card. On your turn, you will play one of these elements, play a card, or discard a card, and then draw up to 5 cards.
So the water element pulls one type of meeple to the spot that you place it in. So if I played it here, I could choose the green meeples and move all of those in towards the water element. The fire element does the exact opposite as the water element. Wherever you place it, it pushes one type of meeple away from it. Wind also pushes meeples like the fire element, however it does it differently. Wherever you place the wind, it pushes one type of meeple in a 3 by 3 square, one space in that direction. The last 2 elements are a little different. Death will kill all the meeples on a single space. And when you do that, you can choose 2 of the meeples on that space to put in your own afterlife. The rest go back in the bag. Earth allows you to place new meeples on the board. So wherever you play Earth, you would draw 5 new meeples out of the bag, or you could choose to resurrect meeples from your afterlife, and you'd place it on that space. There are a few extra rules surrounding where you can and can't place elements. So you can't place an element on a monument, garden. So if an element is already on the board, I can play a garden there. However, if there's a garden, I can't put an element on top.
So there are some instances where worshippers will not move when they usually do. So if I place the wind element here, the 3 by 3 square is where I'd be looking, and if I pick red to move, usually these guys would move up 1 space, but the monument is in the way. They don't have a valid movement, so they would stay. Everything else would move as normal. But alternatively, if I had placed fire here and chose red, I would have to scatter these, and generally you scatter them openly from that space. I couldn't put one here, so I just have to pick another square to put it to. Also, whenever you're moving worshippers, they cannot go off the board. So in this case, the 2-player board is a little bit smaller, he could not go here. Once all of the 5 elements have been placed on the board, you will clear them off and start a new round, and the first player token is passed to the next player. So once I've placed an element and moved the worshippers, I can now play or discard a card. Monument cards let you place monuments, and the garden cards let you place gardens on the board. Meanwhile, the divinity cards have 2 different options for you. There's this top half of the card that lets you score points immediately, and then this bottom half of the card lets you score points at the very end of the game. So I have a monument card, and I can place a monument wherever there is at least 1 gray and 1 green meeple, or mason and gardener. So here, there's the required meeples. I will place my monument. The monument is big enough that it takes up the whole space, so anything that was on that square, it now needs to move to one of the squares surrounding it. It's your choice. If you place a monument that is adjacent somehow to a garden, you get 5 points per garden it's adjacent to. You discard your card, and then you need to draw back up to 5. You can choose any of the 3 cards available. Just a quick note when you are placing monuments on the board, they cannot be orthogonally adjacent to another monument. They can, however, be diagonally adjacent. When you want to place a garden on the board, If you notice on the card, it shows that it is diagonally adjacent to a monument. It has to be diagonally adjacent to one of your monuments. So I could place a garden here or here as long as the correct meeples were there. And when you place a garden, you get 5 victory points per monument surrounding it. So right now I just have 5 points. If someone else's monument was next to that when the garden was placed, they would also receive points.
So the first type of divinity card is called a ritual. If you have the corresponding monuments, gardens, and meeples on the board, you can play this card, score the points, and take the red meeple into your afterlife. The second type of divinity card is called the smite card. Here you would have to play the death element, and you remove meeples from the board. You could play this divinity card right afterwards, and if you meet the requirements, for example here, if you kill any 4 meeples of any color, you would be able to score the points on the top of the card. However, some smite cards require you to kill a certain number of one type of worshipper.
So the way that the game progresses is with these divinity cards. When a player chooses to play a divinity card on their turn, they receive the points immediately and then flip the card over and place it down in front of their play area. As soon as someone has played 5 of the divinity cards, that triggers the end of the game. You finish the current round and count up the points.
So at the end of the game, any divinity cards in your hand will give you victory points based on these conditions at the bottom. So this one will give you 3 points for every purple meeple you have in your afterlife. This one will give you 1 point for every gray meeple next to one of your monuments. And this one will give you 2 points for every gray meeple on a garden next to one of your monuments. So once you score points based on the divinity cards in your hand, you can also score points based on community divinity cards.
So these cards were placed face up at the beginning of the game for everyone to see. You don't look at the top part, you look at the bottom half. So everyone can receive 1 point per red meeple next to their monument and 2 points for green meeples next on gardens next to their monuments, and so on. Alright, so that's how you play the game. Let's talk about how we feel about it. Bryce, what are some of the pros?
So this game is really easy to learn. There's only just a handful of rules that you need to know, and then you can be off to the races. However, it's really hard to master. Even after like multiple games, there were times where, I'm not trying to throw Allison under the bus here, but there was times where she was doing things and I'm like, what's she doing? Like, is this a new tactic? Like, how can she play certain cards? Like, I have no idea what she's doing.
I do what I want.
And then come to find out, like, halfway through the game, she's like, oh, shoot, I can't do this other thing I was trying to do because I played my monuments too close together or whatever.
Yes, this game is very strategic. You got to be doing the right thing at the right time.
Definitely. It's just a big, giant, evolving puzzle.
And I do like that. I love that it's so puzzly, where you have to, like, think about, okay, I think I can move this element here, and then I can do this, and you have to, like, set things up perfectly. So it's a great thinky puzzle.
Yeah, the puzzle's always evolving with the meeples or worshippers, like, moving around the board, and then you thinking, like, okay, I have this perfect spot to place my monument.
But then when it's your turn again, they've ruined your plan.
Or they took it on their turn.
Or that. And also, I want to speak to the art of the game. Everything looks gorgeous. I love, like, the simplicity of how the cards are laid out. The graphic design is really nice. And the icons are, pretty straightforward. And I know this is a prototype, but my goodness, these element tokens, I love them so much.
Yeah, I think they're really cool. I also like how all the monuments are unique. Again, I know it's a prototype, and these are 3D printed monuments. So I can't wait to see how they actually come out with the, like, molding injection or whatever fancy term they use for that. But I like how they're all unique to every player.
Yeah, they're different colors and different shapes, so it's very easy to pick up whose is what on the board. And for those of you who are colorblind, a little bit worried about the colors of the meeples, those colors are subject to change, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Okay, so what about some of the cons of the game?
So this isn't so much a con for me, but this is a con kind of generally, or at least for some people. And that is, the theme is pretty weak, in my opinion. I could see this being almost any themed game, or even just, little blocks and just anything else, because it is so abstract that I feel like it could just be a lot of different things.
That's true. Like, it is pretty abstract, so I can see how it could have a different theme slapped on it. But I do also think that, you know, if you're thinking about what you're doing, you can kind of remember what, you know, like when you're using elements and you're using wind to move those worshippers and like you're influencing them. I think it is pretty cool, but yes, you can kind of forget about that because you're just thinking about the puzzly aspect of it. But yeah.
But that's not to say that the theme isn't there. Like Allison said, the theme does make sense. It's just when you're in the middle of a game, you're just thinking, okay, I need to move these red meeples over here and play this card and put this little thing out over here, and you're not really thinking about the theme in the middle of your game.
True. Except for when you're using smite. Ha ha. When you're moving the workers off and you're collecting summon to your afterlife.
Anyway, what are some cons for you?
So I guess I'm gonna take the cop out and say this isn't necessarily a con. Depends on who you are. This game has analysis paralysis written all over it, and I've got it bad. So thank you. If you are one that like to think and analyze, this game gives you so much to think about because you're trying to plan like 3 steps ahead, but then the board is always changing and moving, and you never know what element you're gonna get when you play. Analysis paralysis.
Yeah, you really do have to think like 3-4 steps ahead at least and be like, okay, my opponent's probably going to take this element. I need to push these meeples over here, so I need either that one or that element. So it is very ripe for analysis paralysis.
So that's good that there's a solo mode.
And also, if you have an experienced player playing an inexperienced player or several inexperienced players, they're probably going to run away with the game.
That is true. Since this game is very strategic, there can be runaway winners. Or, you know, if you're really good at thinking 5 steps ahead and thinking about what the other player is going to be doing too, you're going to win the game every time. But even though I've lost every time, I still like this game.
And even though I've won every time, I still like this game. Because it is a big puzzle, and I like trying to see if I can place my monuments in different ways to score more points or less points, or, you know, see what different strategies work.
Oh yeah, there's so many different strategies to go for, and I feel like even after all the several plays that we've been doing, I haven't even tapped into everything yet. I do want to take a moment to talk about the solo mode of the game. I'm not doing a full review of it, so I'll just mention it here. It is very interesting how it's laid out because it gives you even more to think about, where you flip over a card, it's like, okay, you can pick one of these 3 elements, and so you pick one, and then you do it, and then when it comes to your turn again, you only have like one option of an element to place, and there's certain workers that you can't move during that round, so it gives you even more to think about and to analyze, and it's just crazy. It blows your mind. Alright, so final thoughts. Bryce, what do you think about the game?
Well, I like the depth of strategy that this game has. Like we said, it's really easy to learn, but it's really hard to master. And when you think you have a good strategy, someone just throws a wrench in it. But I can't wait to see the final production of this. It already looks really cool with the elements and the monuments, but I want to see what they are in their final form.
Definitely. So I would agree. I love the puzzly aspect of this game, and it's just always a great challenge for your brain. It may kill it from time to time when you're playing it, but it's so fun doing it. And, you know, like I said earlier, I've lost every single game we've played with this, but I still like it, okay? And I will win one day. But, yeah, I'm excited to see what the final product of this game looks like, because some of the pieces are already amazing, and I love the art of the game. Before I knew anything about it and I saw the cover, I was like, ooh, I need to look into that. So this game is currently on Kickstarter right now. You guys should definitely check it out and see what Side Room Games is doing.
So the Kickstarter link will be in the description, but also comment down below and tell us what element is your favorite.
And if you want to see more of our content, definitely check out more of our reviews. And we're also on Instagram posting daily about the games we're playing.
So I'm Bryce.
I'm Allison.
And we're Better Half Reviews.
Happy gaming!
Have fun.
Sacrifice! Into the